What's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again tonight with another episode of After the Buzzer, the show where I recap the NBA games from the night. And we just had game one of the NBA Finals, Miami versus Denver, a series that I was really excited for going into it. As I talked about in my series preview video, I think there's some really fun matchups between these two teams. Denver has been easily the most fun team to watch in the playoffs so far. The Heat, of course, are the ultimate underdog story, going from 8 seed that lost their first play-in game to now NBA Finals participant. It's all around a great time. But coming into the series, the Nuggets were pretty heavy favorites. I think they're one of the biggest favorites in NBA Finals history, or at least recent Finals history, which is kind of understandable when you have a 1 seed versus an 8 seed, and that led to a lot of people picking the Nuggets to win in 4 games, 5 games. Me personally, I picked Denver to win in 6 because I've learned over the course of these playoffs that I can't really doubt Miami, even if it looks like the team they're going up against is just better. The Heat find ways to win, but in game 1 in Denver, it felt kind of inevitable that the Nuggets would probably win this game. They were on like 10 days of rest, while the Heat played just a few days ago in game 7 in TD Garden. The Heat are also a little bit banged up. Jimmy Butler's ankle is bothering him. Gabe Vincent also dealing with an ankle injury as well. The altitude in Denver is going to be a big storyline all throughout the series because the Nuggets coming into game 1 had not lost a single home game this entire playoff run, while the Heat meanwhile had stolen game 1 in every single series leading up to this point. So it felt like one of those trends, well, one of them factually had to break, but it felt a lot more likely that the Nuggets would go ahead and get this thing done, which is exactly what they did in this game. They were blowing out the Heat for a majority of this matchup. Now in the fourth quarter, the Heat kind of figured some things out, brought this game back within 10. I think they got it as low as 7 or 8, 9, one of those numbers. They got within single digits for a few seconds, but ultimately the Nuggets end up winning this game 104-93, winning by 11 points. And for a majority of the matchup, it really was not that close. Denver is just really good, is kind of the storyline of this game. They were phenomenal offensively, like they always are. I mean, they were led by the usual cast of guys. Nikola Jokic had an absurd game. He dropped 27 points, 10 rebounds, and 14 assists, dropping a triple-double in his finals debut. I believe ESPN Stats and Info said he was the second player to ever do that. There was also another stat that I'm going to go ahead and pull up real quick. He's just the second player in NBA history to lead both teams outright in points and assists in a final debut, joining Michael Jordan in 1991. So he had an incredible debut in the NBA Finals, which is to be expected. It's Nikola Jokic. He's the best player in the league at this point. He's just an unstoppable force. And like I said in my series preview video, they're going to have to find a way to slow him down, but I really don't know if there's a true answer on this Heat roster. Really, it doesn't feel like there's a true answer across the entire league. Bam Adebayo played some really solid defense on Nikola Jokic. It just really didn't matter. I mean, Jokic only shot 12 times, so they limited him from taking over offensively, but again, he still finished with 27 points. He had 14 dimes. They sent a double at him a few times. They tried zone defense, all the usual tricks that Miami has up their sleeve, but against the Denver Nuggets, it's really not going to work because he's such a high-level playmaker and such an elite scorer, and he's surrounded by elite scorers as well, where it feels like you just can't really throw any look other than one-on-one on Nikola Jokic if you want to prevent a 40% three-point shooter on the perimeter from getting the ball. But if you play one-on-one on Jokic, like the Heat learned down the stretch of this game where they brought it pretty close, but then Jokic hit a couple of shots on Bam, forced a couple of free throws, made a couple of passes, and all of a sudden this game was again out of reach for Miami. He's just an unstoppable force. I really don't know what Miami can do against him. Also, the size played heavily into this game. Aaron Gordon went off at the beginning of the game. He started the game 6 of 8, I think, with 12, 14 points in the first quarter. Now, he would only end up scoring 16 points, and he went 7 of 10 from the field. So after that first quarter, he really wasn't involved as much, but he was destroying the Heat because the size mismatch is so huge. That was one of the biggest things I highlighted in that series preview video. The Heat just don't have the size to really match up with Denver all that well. Aaron Gordon was being physical. He was getting switches, whether it was on mainly Gabe Vincent, but also like Max Strus. Really, if it wasn't Jimmy Butler guarding him, Aaron Gordon was going to get downhill, get to the basket, and finish. He's very simple. He's just going to back his guy down all the way to the basket and just finish right up and over him. He doesn't do anything crazy. He doesn't try to, shoot over the guy. He's just going to back them down. He used his size very well, and that was a consistent theme. Also with Nikola Jokic, who, like I said, Bam Adebayo did his best, but Jokic is just bigger. And also there was a moment where Cody Zeller came in this game and Nikola Jokic just pushed him completely off, like it was like he was a traffic cone, not a 7-footer out there. I really don't think you can have any moment where if Jokic is on the court, Bam Adebayo has to be out there because you cannot afford that not to be the case. I mean, Jokic made Zeller literally look like a child out there. Bam is going to have to play like almost all 48 minutes every single game in this series if they want to stand a chance. One thing I will say that I think is a good counter to the size mismatch that Miami used was Haywood Highsmith minutes. He played really well in this game. I think he ended up dropping 15 points, if I remember correctly. I'll pull this up real quick. 18 points, actually. 7 of 10 shooting, 2 of 4 from 3. 2 steals. I thought he played some really solid defense. He closed this game for the Heat until they got blown out, where they put in some of their reserves. But he played some big minutes down the stretch. He was phenomenal at the end of this game. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a lot more minutes. I wouldn't even be surprised if he starts at some point in the series. He just gives the Heat a lot more size that they're not getting from some of the other guys in their starting lineup. I mean, Max Strus in particular was awful in this game. He shot 0 of 10 from the field, 0 of 9 from 3. He was a minus 12, literally 0 points. Caleb Martin, who had such a phenomenal conference finals, was not a factor in this game. He finished with 3 points, and it took him a while to get those 3 points. He finished 1 of 7 from the field, a minus 10. He didn't play down the stretch of this game. He really struggled. Also on the list of guys who struggled for Miami in this game was Jimmy Butler, who at the beginning of the game looked really aggressive. He was getting to his spots. He was getting downhill and putting pressure on the rim, leading to open threes for his teammates. It's all the stuff that we've seen Jimmy Butler do over the course of these playoffs. It's what we saw him do specifically in the Bucks series, where he kept getting these great looks at the elbow, at the nail, where he would just knock down these jumpers, but he just was not taking them in this game against Denver. He went really passive, which led to Bam Adebayo having to be more aggressive, and Bam was phenomenal in this game. Like I said, he played good defense, even if it didn't work most of the time because Jokic is unstoppable. But offensively, he finished this game with 26 points, 13 boards, 15 assists. He shot 13 of 25 from the field. He was really good in this game. They needed somebody to be aggressive. It was Bam. They were playing a lot of drop coverage, trying to force him to the baseline where he knocked down a bunch of mid-range jumpers. He was just aggressive. This is the Bam Adebayo that the Heat want to keep seeing throughout this series. But in addition to him, they need a more aggressive Jimmy Butler. You can't have Jimmy Butler dropping 13 points in a finals game if you want to win. He was a minus 17. He shot 6 of 14 from the field. He didn't get a single free throw attempt. In fact, the Heat as a whole, like the entire team, shot 2 free throws, and they came from Haywood Highsmith in this game. It's the lowest free throw total shot by any team in NBA Finals history. You can't have that if you're Miami. And it wasn't like a referee situation. Basically, nobody on the timeline is complaining about the refs. The Heat just really didn't try to attack inside, which is what you think they would do against a Denver team whose probably biggest weakness is rim protection, but they just didn't do that. Jimmy Butler, again, was not aggressive getting downhill. Bam Adebayo was shooting a lot of mid-range jumpers. The Heat as a whole shoot a good number of threes. I mean, they're the best three-point shooting team in the playoffs so far, so that makes sense. But the Heat are also a team that's known for being able to get to the line, specifically Jimmy Butler. Even if his shot isn't falling, he's aggressive, he puts pressure on the rim, and gets the free throw line to get the Heat some easy offense. He wasn't doing that in this game. He acknowledged it in his post-game press conference that he's got to do that more, he's got to be better, and that's probably the biggest adjustment I would say the Heat have to make next game. They've got to attack downhill, that way Jimmy Butler can get inside, put some pressure on the rim, get to the line, get open threes for the shooters, because they're going to have to send a couple of guys to stop Jimmy Butler. Although I will say, it wasn't just Jimmy not being aggressive. Aaron Gordon played some phenomenal defense on him in this game. But overall, they're just going to need a lot more from Jimmy Butler if they want to stand any chance in this series. 93 points is not going to cut it against the Denver Nuggets. Their defense in this game was not great for a majority. It felt like the Nuggets were getting a lot of good looks. Ultimately, they weren't knocking down some threes that they typically hit. But in the fourth quarter in particular, I really liked what they did. They went to a couple of different zone looks. They played man. They just continued to switch up the pressure they were sending at Jokic, whether it was a double, whether they were delaying the double, going immediately off the catch. They're doing a bunch of different things, and I think that's what you have to do if you're Miami. You've got to continuously switch things up if you go to one consistent look, even if it's working beautifully for a bit. The Nuggets are really good at figuring those things out, so I think throwing all those wrenches into the works makes things a lot more manageable for the Miami defense, so I expect them to continue to do that. I'm excited to see what Eric Spoelstra has going forward. Ultimately, I don't think it was the worst performance from Miami. I mean, they shot in this game 13 of 39 from deep, which is 33%, which isn't terrible, but the Heat have been shooting 39% throughout the playoffs. I think they're going to shoot a lot better going forward. They were missing a lot of looks. I mean, the Nuggets defense was not phenomenal in this game by any sense of the word. I mean, it was good, I would say, but I do think they can still step it up a notch. I think the Heat could have knocked down a lot more of those three-point looks. I don't think you're going to have Max Strus going over 10 from the field again. I don't think he's going to drop 0 points. He's not going to shoot 0 of 9 from deep. Duncan Robinson is 1 of 5 from 3. The Heat will shoot better going forward, so I think that's something that they could probably, or at least I would expect, they would shoot a little bit better going forward. But really, I think my biggest takeaway from this game is that Denver is just a well-oiled machine, which has been no secret throughout the regular season and the playoffs. But seeing it happen on the biggest stage in the NBA Finals, it's so fun to watch. Also, I don't think somehow I've touched on Jamal Murray at all throughout this video. Murray was fantastic. He had 26 points, 6 rebounds, 10 assists. He was a +9 in this game, shot 50% from the field. The three-point shot really wasn't falling too much in this game, but he was getting a lot of great mid-range jumpers. The two-man game between him and Nikola Jokic is so incredibly lethal. There's really nothing you can do to stop that. He, of course, was also playmaking at a high level. Like I said, 10 assists from him, as well as 14 from Nikola Jokic. Those two guys created basically all the offense for this team, which is typically the case, but it just shows how dynamic and incredibly difficult those two guys are to stop. Even when you know that they are the two people you have to worry about, there's really nothing you can do when their two-man game is looking the way that it did in this game. Like how Miami has really no answer for Jokic, it's hard to see them having an answer for Jamal Murray either. They put a couple of different guys on him in this game. Again, they threw some zone looks out there as well, but Murray was kind of just picking everything apart, whether or not he was playing off of Nikola Jokic or they were kind of doing their own thing. He's just so good at breaking apart defenses, playing on ball, off ball. The Nuggets are just kind of unstoppable at this point. I saw a couple of things that were promising for the Heat, and ultimately, I think it is going to be a more competitive series than people are making it out to be. But yeah, ultimately, I'm leaving this game feeling like the Heat have some things to build on, but Denver's probably just too difficult of an opponent to overcome. I picked them to win in 6. This game made me feel like it's probably that outcome, or maybe even 5 games, because I just don't know how Miami answers all of these questions. I expect Eric Spoelstra to make a bunch of great adjustments. I just don't know if it's going to end up being enough. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Game 1 of the NBA Finals. Let me know in the comment section below what your biggest takeaways were, and also who you have winning this series. Do you think the Nuggets are going to end up winning in a sweep, 5 games, 6 games? Do you think the Heat can push them to 7? Do you think that some of the promising things that Miami showed, particularly in that fourth quarter, they can build off of? Let me know all that down in the comment section below. Also, leave a like and subscribe if you did enjoy. Like I said, NBA Finals content is going to be coming every single day following a game, and also some other NBA offseason stuff, because now that's the reality for the 28 other teams in the league. So I appreciate y'all watching. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.